Hello, welcome along to Sport and Life in association with Bang & Olufsen of Cheltenham and Serene AV, who pride themselves on world-class customer care and home installations. And we also come to you with Cytoplan's food-based supplements that I've been taking for 25 plus years, and you get 30% off with the podcast, your first purchase at cytoplan.co.uk, 10% ongoing with the discount code Draper10X, my last name, all capital letters, then the numbers 10 and the capital letter X. Okay, on with the show. Vassos Alexander, welcome to Sport and Life. Very good to have you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for inviting me.
No, it's brilliant. How was the show today? The track radio, I've been listening in a little bit. That's a lot of fun. It seems music and sports a good combination for most people.
Yeah, we really love it. It felt like it was something that was, that there was a bit of a gap there, sport throughout the day, no news. I mean, we have news on the hour, but we don't have news discussions. It's just music and sport, as it says on the tin. And it's all sport, not just men's sport, not just football, not just elite sport. Actually, we sometimes celebrate, community sport as well. So yeah, all good stuff. And we try and, tell the stories. I'm always very conscious. Would my wife Caroline be interested in what we're talking about? And if we're talking about false nines and I don't know, kind of Formula One nominally aspirated, what sort of ratio electric to think, then the answer's no. But if we tell the story, if we tell the human stories of sport, then the answer's yes.
It's interesting you said that, because you had your background in the BBC and Five Live.
Yeah.
Did you was that a shift through working with Chris Evans that you realised that there was a way of doing sport and all topics that's more inclusive, more opinion?
Actually, exactly that. I was for a long time I was the Radio 2 sport guy, and when you've got an audience of 10 million, many of whom will love sport, but many of whom won't. You have to keep the people who love sport interested, and you have to keep the people who don't necessarily love sport interested. And the thing is, I mean, as you'll know, Teddy, sport is just about stories. Look at Drive to Survive. It made people realize that Formula One, which is maybe the sport that you would think is least human and it's most about the cars, is actually, even Formula One, it's just about the people, and it's about their stories and what they're trying to do and what they're trying to achieve. And, and that's a lesson I did learn at Radio 2. You can't just go in and talk about, who Manchester City should sign this summer without telling them what the story is. But once you do tell people why it's interesting, then it's just interesting.
It's a big of a transformation, isn't it, during our time? I guess the expansion of the media into all those sort of rivulets online and the internet, where it becomes so niche that there is a sort of audience out there for every tactical decision of every different sport. But that can be not isolating, but it can become more and more narrow, can't it, in terms of who you're speaking to?
Yeah, exactly that. And I don't think that the people who do want to talk about false nines, mind you, talking about football more generally and more painting the sort of the broader brushstrokes as to, what Pep Guardiola might be thinking before he makes a decision about the tactics for the FA Cup final save, or before he decides to, leave Manchester City. The two can coexist.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting with track radio, because I heard Russ Williams covering the Drive Time show recently. He was a former teammate of mine at Absolute Radio, Virgin Radio before that, in the first incarnation of Virgin Radio. I was on the Sport Breakfast show, but me and Russ would do a daily sports podcast. And obviously he hosted Rock and Roll Football, which was a Saturday afternoon show with music and sport updates, which is different than track radio because you're doing sports talk. But there is something in that, isn't there? Rather than talking ad infinitum, just to flavour it with a little bit of music, which is probably quintessentially what Radio 2 has done with sport and news and music.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure we're totally basing ourselves on Radio 2,
No.
but the way I learned to talk about sport was very much because I went from Five Live, from a very, sporty, and the more knowledge, the better, to a much more general, but a much bigger audience as well. But yeah, no, I mean, I think sport is our USP on track radio. No, I know it is. Right. And what I hope the music does is just make people think, oh, this is nice. We're not trying to be too cool for school. We're not trying to say, oh, listen to this B-side from, 1997. We're just trying to think, oh, that's a good tune. I'll keep listening. And then hopefully the next discussion will keep me engaged as well. And then
Yeah.
there'll be another good tune and then another interesting sports discussion.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely recipe, and it's working really well. Some great hosts, including yourself. When you talk about the radio, we'll get into running as well. I really want to talk to you about your ultra runs and things like that. But when you first got into a radio studio again, was it strange without Chris Evans? Because it was 14 years, wasn't it? And I've seen some very emotional goodbyes from you last summer. It must have been slightly
Oh
strange
yeah.
to be with him.
It was weird because it was a job that I absolutely loved and continued to love with a bloke that I absolutely love and continue to love actually now.
Mm.
Um, and it was funny. It just felt like time to go. And I didn't, people didn't believe me when I said I didn't have a job to go to.
Mm.
Um, but it was just something that he and I discussed behind the scenes one Friday after the show. And then discussing stuff with Chris off air very quickly becomes discussing something with Chris on air, whether you like it or not. Um, and then it sort of became public, and then it did, and he gave me loads of chances, bless him, to change my mind and just crack on. And it was a
Yeah.
great job that was well paid, that I absolutely loved. But something inside was telling me that it was just time to move on. So I did do that thing where I just jumped off the cliff without a safety net. They do, I could have said to my agent, look, I'm thinking of leaving. Could you find me another job, please? And she'd have said yes, and then done it. And then I could have done that thing where you have one hand on the next trapeze and the other hand on this trapeze, and then it's much safer. But I just let go and sort of let myself go into the air, which I did. After a nice summer off, I did think a couple of times, right, now what? But I suppose, I always had a few irons in the fire. I'm lucky in that I've really loved everywhere I've worked, and I've largely loved everyone I've worked with. So I knew that everyone would take my call. And I was doing some other bits and bobs, and then the track radio thing came along, and I thought I just can't pass up this opportunity because it's like someone made up my perfect job and then offered it to me. Honestly,
Well, I recommend people taking a listen to it as well, just on the dial, on the digital dial, isn't it? You go down to T and it's there, so it's pretty
yeah.
straightforward to find on your
Yeah.
radio device.
Talk Sport 2, Times Radio, Track Radio, I think. Yeah. All,
Yeah,
all of my previous
which is quite
employers.
handy actually. Yeah. It's quite handy. Not that we'd flick, but if they're not
Yeah.
coinciding commercials, that's the
Well,
difference.
that's the thing. We know that we can't compete with Five Live and Talk Sport, at 6 p.m. tonight. I don't know how dated you want this to be or not, but at
No, it's
6
fine.
p.m.
Yeah,
tonight,
it's
the
fine.
Monday that we're speaking, Argentina are back in action in the World Cup.
Mm.
And I will, even though track radio is on air, Russ is on air between 4 and 7, I will be either watching it or listening to it on Talksport or Five Live. We can't compete with yet with and maybe never, with major sports
Mm.
rights. But during the day, during the week, if you want kind of grown up and interesting and interested sports discussion about a variety of sports, then we don't think we don't think that's covered. So that's why that's our sort of niche. We absolutely are not trying to say don't listen to Talk Sport, because they're great. They're absolutely great, and they'll do. I'm not sure who it is at the game this evening, but we'll do a great job for them.
Yeah, that's very interesting parallel with me working on Sky Sports News. Whenever you're around an England game at a major tournament, everyone's like, "Well, there's no one watching." But I said, "Well, we get a bit of build up in the day. That's the ambience. We're supposed to do that, and the reaction later on." But ITV and BBC will dominate, of course, for the duration of the match.
I do that though, and I'm sure there's some other perverse people. Like during the match, I'll go, I wonder
Yeah.
who's watching Sky Sports News now.
Just me on my own. Yeah.
So I'll turn over to Sky
Then you're
Sports
faced with
News.
a challenge. Do you update it, or do you have to just ignore it
Yeah.
and assume that everyone wants to talk about cricket if they're coming to you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's interesting dilemmas in the broadcast industry. Talk to me about
Yes.
running and where it came from in your life and what it's meant to you, what it's given you, because I hadn't quite realized the extent of your commitment to it. Spartathlons, 50
Yeah.
marathons, is it? So it's been an
Oh,
epic.
I'm more than 100, I think now, if you
Whoa.
include ultra marathons. Yeah, no, I do. I absolutely love it, and I'm sort of like a born again runner. You know, I wasn't always a runner, and I came to running relatively late. So I'm absolutely
Mm.
evangelical about the kind of transformative power of running, exercise generally, but I think running probably does it best. I remember actually, speaking of Chris Evans, Chris and I were lucky enough to be broadcasting live from the Olympic Park during the 2012 Olympics. We had a couple of shipping containers, one on top of the other, right in the shadow of the Olympic Stadium. And all the gold medalists would be brought to us on the Radio 2
Yeah.
breakfast show. And Chris asked Jess Ennis Hill, um, what's it like to be so fit? Which is a sort of fair enough question for someone who's just won heptathlon
Yeah.
gold. I
Yeah.
mean,
Everything. Yeah.
arguably the fittest woman in the world on that morning, you know.
Mm.
And she said, I don't know because, you know, I've always been fit. She's always been really good at sport. But I do know what it's like to be unfit. You know, in my early 30s, I was not fit. And I noticed a little, you know, a little flab of fat hanging over my belt on the way to work at Television Centre one day. And that was the thing that
Back
got me
fat as well.
started.
Yeah. Yeah. The back. So you
Yeah.
got the back bit, don't you, as well? Yeah. It's the
Yeah, I was just
yeah.
stopped at the traffic lights, and I went, "What's that over my?" Because I had my shirt tucked in unusually because I've been playing golf. I thought,
Yeah.
"What is that little tube? Horrible thing!" And I thought, "Oh my goodness, this is what happens when you hit your 30s. You know, you either
Mm.
start exercising or stop eating what you like, or you know, or just get fatter." And I thought, well, let's see what exercise, you know, whether that works for me. And I started running, and it was hard. You know, I just hadn't run before, but I realized that it sort of ticks all of the boxes for me: the mental health, the physical health, the sense of space, the sense of just adventure, the sense of the connection to where you are running. I love everything about running. It was
Mm.
like 360 degrees of awesome, even though, you know, obviously when you're running, it's hard, and it still is hard. But like, as you can probably hear in my voice, you know, I really love it. And hence the books, hence all the marathons, hence the fact that, you know, the plan wasn't ever, let's see if I can run the hardest race in the world and finish it. It was, let's see if I can run to the end of my street, and then let's sort of walk run. But then I love getting outside my comfort zone. I love biting off more than I can chew. I love getting slightly kind of like nervous excitement. And so that's where the running journey has taken me. It's just taken me to some very, you know, long distance races and kind of slightly silly events sometimes, but I absolutely love it. I'm so grateful to it.
It's phenomenal, especially if you, as you say, you didn't come from a running background until your 30s. Because the Spartathlon, tell me about that. Are you of Greek heritage? Is it? Does it take
I
place in
am
Sparta?
actually,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is
So
it?
there's two races that runners kind of say are the hardest in the world. There's the Badwater, which is 135 miles from Death Valley
Oh.
in California, 50-degree heat often, up to the top of Mount Whitney, and that's, you know, that's really hard. You get loads of time to finish it. Or there's Spartathlon, which you know, the guy that the sort of the not apocryphal, the true story, I think, of the guy Phidippides, the Greek messenger who ran from Marathon to Athens to deliver news of the battle win. I mean, it's sort of how the marathon took its name.
Mm.
Um, what what he did before that 26-mile run that gave birth to the marathon, was run from Athens to Sparta to ask for Spartan help in the battle. And according to Greek mythology, he arrived before night fell on the second day. And so the Greeks 30 years ago decided to sort of honor that run that he did, by seeing if it was even possible to run from Athens 155 miles over the mountains, the Peloponnese, to Sparta. And they make it hard. You know, you have to do the first marathon out of Athens in 3.5 hours, or they
Ooh.
hoik you out of the race, or 3:45. I can't remember exactly what it was, but either way, it's quite punchy when you've got, you know, another 5 and a bit marathons to go afterwards, you know. And then it's 30 degrees in the day, and then it can be -1 on the top of this 4,000-foot mountain when you're up there at 100 miles. Um, but it's one of the great races. It's one of the hard races. I had a really good day and night, and a bit of the next day as well, and managed to finish it. And that was that was one of the real highlights. But when you finish, you know, the Greeks rightly think that you're honoring their culture by running it, which you are. And so they close Athens, they close streets for 300 ultra nutters to just run through on a Friday morning. You leave as dawn rises over the Acropolis, and then everywhere you go on the route, like in the middle of nowhere, but schools closed for the day. They come and cheer you on. These villages in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, they're all kind of like having a party and celebrating all these people as they come through. This old woman rubbed basil in my hair in the middle of the night because she thought it might help. And then you get to Sparta, and the whole city is out. And of the 300 people, maybe 100, 150 on a good year finish. So they're not. It's not like the London Marathon where there's people finishing the whole time. There's somebody finishes and then there might be nothing for half an hour, and then somebody might finish. So they make such a fuss of you. Kids grab your hands and sort of parade you through the streets for the last kilometer, and everyone's up and celebrating. And and then instead of a finishing line, you touch, or more charmingly if you want, kiss the feet of the sort of warrior king, and then they give you some water from the river, which is what Phidippides would have been given. It feels like you've got history on your back as well as you make this run. It was just fantastic. It's one of those, like, a run where you discover what's at the end of the rainbow.
And how did it affect your self-belief that you can do that? Is that a
Oh,
big factor?
yeah, honestly, it is. I still sort of, I don't think pride, when it's sort of self-pride, is ever a good thing, right? But
Mm.
I sort of can't help myself with this. The list of The list of people who failed to finish Spartathlon is like a who's who of ultra running. And like I say, I had a really good day. I had a really good training block beforehand. I was really fit. I was really on it. And I had a lot of luck on the day, because so much stuff can go wrong in that sort of distance. But yeah, I did finish it, and it did change my opinion of who I was as a runner. That and running a marathon in under 3 hours. I suddenly thought, oh, I actually can do this. It's all right if I give people sort of running advice a bit, because actually, I've reached a stage where I'm all right at this.
Mm. But so
Not that, not, sorry.
how's your body as well? Because as you've done all these miles and put them on the joints, because there's a lot of people who are sort of anxious about running, aren't they? Because they say it might damage their joints, etc. How do you?
Yeah, they do think that. They do think that. And good question. But, uh, I strongly believe, and am right about the fact that running is actually really good for us, good
Yeah.
for our joints. Yes, yes, if you start running like I did in my 30s and your body goes, what the hell is this? You're going to get all the niggles, right? And
Mm.
my knee and I sometimes have long and frank conversations about how much it wants to hurt today, but um, we were born to run. We look like we look. We don't look like Neanderthal man or woman who were
Mm.
stronger than us and faster than us, because we were evolved to hunt, persistent hunt across the African savannah. It's in our DNA to run long distances. So I think the more you do it, and this has been scientifically proven, the more you do it, the more resilient your joints become. You know,
Yeah. And
but
do
yes, if you
training around,
start.
yeah, leg weights and stuff. People recommend they around that a little bit to strengthen the
Well,
joint.
also, yeah. I mean, reaching middle age, we've got to do weights. It's just
Mm.
really important. It's sort of anti-aging stuff. So yeah, today was leg day in the gym. I finished the show this morning, and I moaned to producer Miles. I said he was going to drive back to Tring where he lives, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "It's flipping leg day,"
Oof.
which was today was a front squat and deadlifts and Bulgarian split squats, which are just horrible.
Behind you.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's all good for you, and it is, and then you do them, you feel more resilient, you feel stronger, you feel kind of fitter.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I suppose they often say, don't they, with exercise, that it's the people who go from nothing to something that feel the most benefit as well. Would you say that's something from people
Yeah,
who are
yeah, 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 yeah.
running around the block for the first time might be, once you can do that a few times, might be a big psychological step.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm chair of my running club currently, Barnes Runners, and we are running a couch to 5K. And there's about a dozen people who are on this is week 3. Tomorrow night will be week 3.
Mm.
And that's great, running and walking. That's how I started. I started running for as long as I could, a minute or so, and then do some walking breaks. And then, I got to 10 minutes running on, and I thought, well, what if I don't take my walking break now? And I did 20.
Mm.
And then I did 20 minutes. And then I thought, well, hang on a minute, 20 minutes is a run. I've gone out for a run for 20 minutes. I haven't stopped running. And ever since then, actually, I've always thought a run has to be a minimum of 20 minutes for me to count it as a run.
That's what I've always done. I've always done like 20 minutes a week. I've never gone on to long distance, but I guess I played quite a lot of football as a kid, but I'd always do the base cardio of 20-minute runs. But it's interesting that I never had that urge to crack on and do the long distances. But it is interesting how people reap the rewards mentally and emotionally from doing that.
Yeah, and the other thing, running, if you go to your local park, run, that's about community as much as it is about running or walking the 5 kilometers on a Saturday morning for free, and
Mm.
and they've done research on this park run. I know they have because I know the people involved, and actually the volunteers get as much, if not more, out of it than the runners, because that's all good stuff as well. And I think if you do start exercising, if you do start running, or honestly, if you start eating a bit healthier, or just getting outside a bit more into nature, all of this stuff just trickles into your life and it
Mm.
becomes a bit of a virtuous circle. You start running, you want to eat healthier. You start
Yeah.
eating healthier, you want to start exercising and running. And running is just one of, many things to do. You play football, you say, and keep
Yeah.
going. I go to the gym as much as I run now, but I still
Mm.
love running the long distances. And I swim. Like last winter and summer, I was training to do a solo channel attempt, which never happened because of the weather. But there's loads of different things out there to keep us interested. And it just, like you say, because I'm not Jessica Ennis-Hill, because I haven't always been fit, I am a bit more kind of vociferous about because I feel the benefits so much more, like you say, I'm therefore, no, I can't stop shouting about it.
How many calories did you consume on that 150-mile run, or when you're doing your long distance training generally? It must be a lot.
Well, no, it's quite annoying because the Garmin splits it into 24-hour segments. So
Okay.
between 6 a.m. and midnight, I'd done, I don't know, 130,000 steps, and I don't know how many calories. And I don't know how much to trust the calories because my 2:59 marathon. I remember I was asked to do a talk at the Wellcome Institute in London um, about how about the rise in us tracking our own health.
Mm.
And I showed them because, try and stop me. I said, look, this was me 3 months ago. I ran a marathon in 2:59, and I showed them all my sort of, and then it went calories consumed at 1,500. Went 1,500. Do you know how much
Yep.
work
A big
went
meal,
into
isn't it?
that?
Yeah, it's a big meal, isn't it? Yeah, is that fish and chips maybe or something like that would be.
Exactly, fish and chips and a pudding. So I don't know how many calories, but and I don't really count calories because I'm not sure how kind of healthy that is
Mm.
generally to be
That's
counting how
right.
calories, and I'm not sure how good kind of societally it is for us to have calorie counts on all the sort of menus and stuff like that, because
Mm.
I think generally if people try and eat a bit healthier and not worry about stuff like that, because I don't know, I just don't I don't think it's helpful. But so I don't really track calories. But yeah, obviously plenty. And obviously for the last 10 years I can eat whatever I like
Yeah.
without worrying
I think
about it.
I
And
think
that is just objectively brilliant.
I think when it comes to weight loss, I think the diet is definitely key, isn't it? Because you get the depressing sinking feeling when you look at how many calories you've expended in a typical gym session, and then you look at the actual calories in, say, a Mars bar or something like. You think, wow,
Yeah.
you sweated hard for an hour, and that's what that tiny little bar is all it's amounted to. But it's
But
really fun.
it turbo boosts your system.
Yeah.
You're more able to process those calories in a Mars bar. And if you are going to eat a Mars bar, eat it before you do a gym session because you're going to use all those calories immediately.
Mm, that's true. It's good
Uh,
advice. Vassos, should we follow you on social media? Are you an avid social media person? Is that a good
I'm not
way?
avid. I
Okay.
am on social media. I
Right.
can't remember the last time I was on Twitter.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like I should start. So thank you for the prompt. I am at
Right.
Vassos A on Twitter and at Vassos probably Alexander
Okay.
on Instagram. And yeah, I go through stages. I was just thinking about this today because I was very kind of humbled and pleased to win an award at the Sportsbook Awards. And my
Hmm.
lovely editor at Bloomsbury, Charlotte, said, "Why haven't you posted about that? And also the fact that your book's out in paperback." And I went, "That's a very good point, and I promised to do it." And
Which
that
book?
was 10 days.
Which book is the last? The last? 'Cause I know and I have three books that I know you. Is this How to Run a Mountain
No,
Marathon? Is this
this is called Swimmingly. This is the charts, the progress of me trying to swim the channel, but not doing it because of the weather. But it was all the better for it because I got to just sort of celebrate the wonderful swimming community and the wonderful people who do brilliant stuff with swimming. But anyway, so yes, the point is, I'm really bad at doing social media, and I should do it more. So thank you. How are you on that? Do you do it loads?
I do it a little bit, but it's weird. Sometimes it seems to yield connections and you get to know people through it. And other times it sort of just goes like a dead donut, doesn't it? So it's hard to know how much time you need to spend on it, really. It's a tricky one.
Yeah,
I
I
get
don't know.
lost in it sometimes in nonsense, even if it's health and fitness nonsense. I realize I'm there for 20 minutes and I think, well, maybe I should be doing something else, but it's tricky.
Exactly. Yeah. And on, we broadcast for a living, right? So we sort of, we do quite a lot of this,
Yeah.
and then if you have to spend another hour a day just curating social media posts, it feels like, it's like a bit more work,
Yeah.
and if we don't need to, then we shouldn't. I mean, my agent will not like me saying this. Charlotte is still, I'm sorry, Charlotte, I'll get round to that post. Um, the
But
paperback's out, everyone.
I'm like you. I like being outdoors, so I think being on a computer for any length of time does sort of, especially if you have to do it for a job, it can be a little bit dispiriting, can't it? So I think you get a bit impatient.
Yeah.
But it,
Yeah.
6 a.m. Monday to Friday, Vassos, on Track Radio.
7 a.m.
7
I'm
a.m., sorry.
delighted to say.
Oh,
7
that's a big
a.m.
difference, isn't it? Wow.
Oh, huge at that time in the morning. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's 7 till 10 a.m. Monday to Friday on Track Radio, on, as you say, on digital radio, and it's on the app, and it's on Alexa, and all that stuff. All the good stuff, all the good sport.
If you can set your alarm for 4:30 versus 3:30, it just feels that much different, whatever it is. But as soon as it feels closer to a morning, I remember when I was doing radio, it always felt that much better, didn't it? If it's or any early shift, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've from, from the Chris show. So Chris's show was 25 minutes further away on the bike, London Bridge versus Notting Hill, and it was half an hour earlier on, getting on air, 6:30
Yeah.
versus 7 o'clock. So I basically bought myself an hour's sleep, and at that time in the morning, that is priceless. Like now, it's 4:30 on a Monday. I would normally be knackered if I was doing Chris's show, but I'm fine now because I've had a decent night's sleep, even during the World Cup.
Yes, yeah, I know, which is wreaking havoc with everyone's sleep, isn't it? I just watched
Yes,
the
it is.
first half. I just watched the first half, and then it's like, 3 hours later, it's 2 a.m. Vassos, thank you very much. Appreciate your time, and best of luck with the new show and the book as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Lovely to chat.